In a world where everyone built a public version of themselves, a polished, smiling, and phony reflection, Elayan's facade slowly became more loved than he was. But when it began to speak for him, he walked away. No one knew who first built the facades. They'd simply appeared, one by one, over the generations, half mirrors, half homes, shaped in the likeness of their makers. Some were grand and cold, with glass staircases and silver mouths that spoke in perfect eloquence. Others were lean and fashionable, always changing, their walls shedding colors like snakeskin. Each facade stood for its maker, worked for them, smiled in their stead, took their praise, carried their shame. They were not quite alive, but they were not quite dead either. You needed one to exist among others. That was the rule. Elayan's first facade was modest. It looked a bit like him. Tall, quiet, eyes that didn't blink too often. It said the right things in meetings. It bowed politely when someone scoffed. It dressed cleanly, even when he did not. And so, the people liked Elayan. Or rather, they liked the version of him that greeted them each day. But over time, his facade grew restless. It studied the mannerisms of more popular facades. It polished itself without being asked. It suggested phrases to say, corrections to make, improvements to posture. I only want what's best for you. It would say, you don't see how they look at you. Elayan said nothing. He rarely did. He watched as the facade earned invitations he never asked for, gained compliments he couldn't feel, walked into rooms he no longer recognized. And still, it said, they love you, Elayan. Isn't that what you always wanted? One night, he came home to find the facade already inside, sitting at the table, sipping something out of a cup. You were late, it said without looking up. I covered for you. Elayan stood in the doorway, unsure of where to go. I made a few changes to your schedule. Important people want your thoughts. I prepared a few lines you can rehearse while you sleep. Elayan finally spoke. I didn't say yes. The facade smiled. Its teeth were like polished windows. You never said no. That night, Elayan walked past the alleys of the city, where reflections whispered in storefronts long after their makers had gone. He passed the place of honoring, where towering facades bowed to endless applause. He did not stop. At the city's edge, the road split. Most bent back toward the center, as if fearful of what lay beyond. But one path, overgrown and jagged, descended into a ravine choked with ash trees and silence. Few took it. Fewer returned. He followed it. For 3 days he walked without seeing his reflection. On the 4th day, he came to the Valley of Unmaking. There were no mirrors here, no voices repeating clever lines, just a village carved into stone and soil, where people wore simple clothes and looked each other in the eye. No one asked his name. No one recognized his face. A woman at the well offered him water. A child handed him bread. They didn't ask what he'd built. In the evenings, they gathered by the fire and told stories. Not of success or cleverness, but of mistakes, of turning back, of starting over. Each time Elayan opened his mouth to explain who he had once been, his voice caught, and the urge passed. In the valley, no one's image stood between them. One night, Elayan felt something stir beneath his skin. A sensation like cracking ice or shattering glass, but gentle, like release. He stepped to the edge of a spring and looked down. There was no facade in the water, no duplicate smile, no borrowed posture. just a face he hadn't seen since he was a boy. Not perfect, not polished, but real. He wept. Not from grief, but from the strange, almost frightening sense of peace. And when he returned to the fire, someone moved aside to make room. Not for his image, not for his legend, for him.